barrier between you and what you want to achieve is how determined you are. Your competence will open doors. Your preparation will keep the doors open. Your integrity will ensure that others trust you to walk through the open doors. When I was appointed Attorney General of Ogun State, I had never seen my governor before. The Secretary of the State Government went to the industry and said, "We are looking for an Attorney General." My organ works well with women, so it doesn't matter if it's a woman. And 2 justices of the Supreme Court, of the court. I was having fun in Dubai when I got the phone call. When I looked at Attorney General of Ogun State, "Are you from Ogun State?" I said, "Well, I have affiliation. One of my grandparents is from Ogun State." And the first time I saw the governor was when he interviewed me. I wasn't a politician. But what spoke for me? My work. Myself and one of the judges had got once before many years ago. I had appeared before another of the judges, and they said she's good at what she does. So, your competence will speak for you. You might not even be there, but whatever you are doing, ensure to excel at doing it. Master your craft. I repeat, master your craft. More than admiration. They admire us and all of that, but we owe them more than that. We owe them opportunity. We owe them guidance. We owe them visibility, and we owe them sponsorship. The future of the bar will not be determined slowly by the cases we win. It will be determined by the leaders that we develop. The NBA Women Forum has the potential to become far more than a professional association. It can become a movement. A movement that shapes policy. A movement that develops leaders. A movement that champions excellence. A movement that inspires confidence, that ensures that every talented woman lawyer has the opportunity not merely to participate, but to lead. I pray that the maiden annual summit will mark the beginning of such an enduring legacy. I congratulate the Nigerian Bar Association Women Forum for this visionary initiative and wish the forum continued success as it charts a bold new course for the legal profession in Nigeria. God bless the Nigerian Bar Association. The noble profession of God. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much. That was really insightful. One part I know I heard very well, that in all that you do, ensure that you don't stop being crazy. And we can tell that despite the sacrifices and the distinguished service she has done to your profession, she has maintained that. Service must be redefined. Leadership must be redefined. Leadership is not just title, it is service. Equip yourself, and when you break a barrier as a woman, ensure that that barrier remains broken. Make room for other women to also thrive. Thank you so very much. At this juncture, thank you. We'll take good photographs with all the distinguished guests, do some presentations to our keynote speaker and our guests. Thereafter, we'll move straight to the panel sessions. We have the first panel session, the moderator is set, the panelists are set, the second panel session, we're going to have it back to back. So we just have our presentations right now, group photographs, and we'll proceed to the panel sessions. Thank you so very much. I'll call the state lead to just do the presentation of the decorations for the guests, our keynote speakers, and the photographs. So please, ma'am, can we just come forward for the group photographs and the presentation? Thank you. We'll be decorating distinguished Senator Adams Oshomole, also be decorating the representative of the Chief Judge of the FCT, our keynote speaker, Honorable Blessing, and also the Royal Mother of the Day, Khadijat Abdul Hadi. To join the decoration, the chairperson of the Women Forum, who is represented by Mr. Ujai. Also, Mrs. Maureen Chubuzon, former chairperson of FIDA, and also join the decoration and the picture.
I want to warmly and passionately congratulate His Royal Highness Ambassador Nuhu Ahmed Babani. Presented by the representative of leadership of the NBA under Adia and this is Lassie, the member of the London Council of the NBA.
Right now we're moving into the next session, which is the final session. This final session is titled Indispensable Academic of Justice. And to be moderating this final session,
I'll teach you. I'm on the edge.
When you came up, I told them that relax, you're gonna learn. I expected it to be like a pro. Thank you for coming. When did you come? This month.
We have Tony Bashir, we have Dr. Uzioma Zora, we have Dr. Watui Alani Kami, we also have Professor Al Mustafa Siji, of Nigeria, Martin Buka, of Nigeria. So right now, to the moderator, to get the panelists.
Yes, now. Your paper. Taking this pose. Well done. Oh, yeah, take them first. They will be good. Take after. Yes, ma'am. We are right Matthew, that's yours. Matthew. These are great people. I need to be among them so that
Matthew, come let them to take this one. We can go back and do our other ceremony.
where is Matthew?
We are take.
But you no, it's
Mary.
we have taken
Take it. No, don't stand like this so that.
how are you? We are laughing.
Where you remove the tag?
Thank you. Not like that, but I'm a bishop.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, we'll call our panelists for the first panel session, Indispensable Architect of Justice. So please, our panelists, we'll just have you up on the stage with the moderator so that we can start the conversation. We have Toyin Bashir, with the Tama Abamu and the Odalo. Please give her a round of applause as she comes to the stage. Are we tired? Please give them a round of applause. Let's encourage our panelists. We have Dr. Ozioma Ibuora, who is here from Yale University. We have Dr. Oluwatoyin Alabikami, who is the FPC coordinator of African Women Lawyers Association. Please give her a round of applause. Please, let's encourage our panelists. We have JJ Usman, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Please give him a round of applause. Matthew Berka, SAN, Principal Partner, Matthew Berka & Co. Please give him a round of applause as he comes to join us on stage. And let's see JJ Usman, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Please join us on stage. Please give him a round of applause. You will hand over to Seya, who will moderate this session and drive the conversation around indispensable architects of justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thank you very much once again. Good morning, everyone. I'm quite in the room. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the leadership of the NBawf Forum, the Ethics Chapter. Can I just ask for some quiet in the room, please, especially at the back, please? Can I ask for some quiet in the room? If you have some. Okay, so I'd like again to thank the leadership of the NBA Women's Forum at the FCT chapter for the invitation to moderate and for building the maiden summit of this caliber. This session has been titled The Indispensable Architect of Justice, but I want to open by widening this loud. You will not benefit from this final session if we continue with the distraction. We're here to listen to the speakers. They are here. Let's give them the opportunity to speak. Thank you. We've titled this session The Indispensable Architect of Justice, but I want to open by widening what that phrase usually means. Typically, we tend to picture justice as something that happens in a bench and in a row, but it's built long, long before that happens. It happens in legislative gathering rooms, in arbitration chambers, in boardrooms, in membership opportunities that happens or doesn't happen. And that's the architecture that we're walking through today, through the lived experience of the three panelists, people who have lived, from this vantage point and can speak to us, from this perspective. We'll move through, in terms of architecture or structure of this panel, we'll move through 2 rounds of questions, each covering entry point, institutional leadership, policy, the bar, governance, and mentorship, and then we'll close with a reflection from each one of the speakers. I'll keep us tight, so please forgive the esteemed panelists if I step in occasionally. I hope that we do benefit from this conversation and that we listen and give the panelists an opportunity to express their thoughts concerning what we've invited them to speak about. Thank you. I'll turn to Dr. Alani Bari. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Congratulations on your book. She's just written a book, Beyond Competence. Let's give a round of applause and appreciation to her. Thank you. The new book is titled Beyond Competence. The title, that quietly makes the argument that an argument of competence was never actually what stood between women and advancement. Okay? If that is true, that competence was not really the problem, what then was the issue? What should a brilliant, qualified woman, what is still missing? Thank you for the question. So this is not your actual question. I saw your book and I thought, okay, if competence is not our issue, what then is, what is a defined challenge that you see based on the book that you've written?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just observe already the protocols and then the organizers,
It's not just like not smooth, it's still at the key.
No, you have to. Abuja branch and the team that took this up. Well, I look at the society, I look at the society around me, I look at my life, I look at the trends going on, and I realize that I dare say we are all competent in one way or the other, either we want to accept it or not. And I'd like to take my response also from the keynote speaker. I was really blessed. That was a very a good charge for every one of us. I want to believe that the majority of us are lawyers. If we are not one, we are lawyers in equity, either way. Now my point is, after graduating from the university with your certificate, graduating, finishing law school successfully, then you're competent. You should be able to take on every role that comes around as a lawyer, because ours is a noble profession. So there's no doubt about that, no argument about that. But I now see the level of decadence in my environment, especially when I say my environment, I'm looking at the law profession and the trajectory going on, and I realize that certain things are missing. And one of the reasons why I'm happy to be here today is I actually wrote that book in 2020 during COVID, and I had a training on it back-to-back during COVID. And it's such an interesting coincidence that today, years down the line, we are talking about beyond limits, beyond inclusion, and I'm like, and I just published a book, Beyond Competence. When we talk about competence, it goes beyond the certificate. Character is important, integrity is important, and that leads us to leadership, which is the core of why we're here today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So just building on what you talked about, character, ethics, integrity, and all the other softer skills that underlie professional competence. I'd like us to talk also about barriers, entry points barriers. What are, in your experience, what are the specific barriers that you witness or you research or you practice that women face at the point of entry, whether it's into early career, whether it's into justice or into governance institutions in Nigeria? And what do you think is most fixable in the next 5 years? And then what do you think will still be discussed in 10 years, regardless of the conversations happening in this room today?
Well, when we talk about the next 5 years, it's the trends that we see, technology in place, things are beginning to take an uncommon, unusual, and completely different tone of getting resolved. Like, speaker says that we can now choose up from home. What I think the next 5 years is how we can institutionalize a measurable pathway for women lawyers from not just entry into the profession, but the progression of every lawyer. We see thousands of lawyers being called to the bar, but nobody cares about the progression. Are we making impact? From the keynote speaker, we realize that women are not yet there. We are still trying, though. There seems to be some improvement, which to me, personally, I think it's our quality facade, because when you look at the ratio and the percentage, you realize that it's quite wide and we have a lot to do. So in the next 5 years, I'm looking at the way in which, when we talk about mentorship, we institutionalize it. The reason why most people derail, most female lawyers derail, is because of the lack of mentorship. And when we talk about mentorship, we
organize it, we will be able to follow it up appropriately and adequately. And I thank God that the NBA Women Forum is actually here to help female lawyers develop themselves in the profession, especially academically. So I'm looking at a situation in which some committee will come on very soon, in which we are intentional about ensuring that every lawyer that is called to the bar is mentored, and we also monitor their progress. At the end of every year, there must be reviews on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So she's spoken very powerfully, championing mentorship, and not just inclusion, but there must be mentorship that then tracks the women within the pipeline and their progression and their growth. Thank you very much. I'll now turn to Dr. Zora. Thank you once again. Dr. Zora, you served as the Vice Chair of the NBA Abuja branch, which is one of the most visible elected leadership roles within the bar itself. What would you say you experience in terms of how women are supported through that process or not, if supported or not, and when they seek elected office within bar institution? And so my thing is there a voter apathy problem, or is there even a pipeline problem? Going back to what Doctor has said, are there enough women? Yes, the thousands of us graduate at law school level, but within the pipeline, what did you notice, your particular challenge, and generally speaking as well? Please, before Doctor speaks, I continue to implore the room to please be quiet. I continue to please ask for this. We call them to speak, allow them to speak, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, and also I want to thank the NBA Women Forum, who already know my story. We talk about becoming vice chair of the NBA Abuja. And there's a story behind it, which many of them also know. Maybe the younger ones won't, but the ancestors came. They know the story. And I tell it like this. I was actually vice chair of FIDA Abuja. And there I was telling FIDA members, hey, your first of all call to Nigerian Bar Association. How come NBA elections are in the air and you're not making any move? Nobody's aspiring. Nobody wants to do anything. Are you going to say that your call to bar is useless? I say this, you see, FIDA provides a comfortable place for women. They just gravitate towards it and they relax. Let men be doing their thing on the other side. So year after year, a new ESCO comes in. I see one or two women and the social secretary or welfare, and they serve the drinks and taking care of the sick and all of that. Hey, what's going on? What's about the vice chair? Actually saw what's her name now? A lady who wanted to be a vice chair, but she wasn't a member of FIDA. So I invited her to FIDA, and I said, we will support you because we need to dilute what goes on there. We're tired of looking at all their trousers, legs, and all that. We need to dilute. She was struggling so much. I was taking her everywhere I went. Hey, because I believe in mentoring. And mentoring isn't always about the older, mentoring the younger. Mentoring goes everywhere. I can learn from anyone. As a teacher, I encourage my students to bring me knowledge and I will learn. Okay, that's what it is. Attention. People, the teacher is talking, you pay attention. Hello? Right. So, I brought Betsy. I said, we will support you in FIDA. And the men, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, men already know and practice politics. They have 10-year development plan. They know who they want to be every year. Women, we accidentally float past. And then we expect, oh, now that they've leveled the plate, let's step up. So Betty struggled. And then at the end, Betty said, I don't want to do this. So they said to take treasurer of the post. And we had like 2 days before every end of the nomination. So I want you. Are you coming for FIDA? And then, in 2 months, when I wrote my name there, their name was chairman. He said, Madam, I have put your name for vice chair. I'm not removing it to whether you say you're ready or not. So as I was leaving his office, I was making calls. And office said, is it how much way. These people who already had a progression plan, they said we will put you at neck. They said they offered me all sorts of incentive. On a Saturday, I'm on a call for hours trying to convince somebody I'm going to run. Let your person run against me. Go and let us take our chances. Frankly, I had nothing to lose. I got in there by accident, but I was ready. I was determined to open up that space to let a woman become a vice chair. It was the first time in Abuja that a woman would buy and then in there. Yes, it actually earned me later in life 9 years of the land. And yeah, I don't mind that. After I got off being vice chair, I started to disturb everybody. Election circle, who wants to go? I need another vice chair. So I got in after disturbing him. I got innovation. No, first of all, that Betsy went back again. He said, oh, they told me the first time and I left it to this time. I said, let me go this time. I don't talk to me again. She now went and vice chair. After that, after that, trauma went to that go. So every time it's really see them around here.
Thank you, Dr. Zora.
This year I tried and I tried and I tried. It was that time my people went and got treasure. If you see the next ESCO or FBA, you will be throwing one more. And I think it's a shame, but that's what we do for this conversation. Why was that so?
Thank you, Dr. Zora. Thank you very much. And tying what you talked about to the keynote speaker as well, and she mentioned sponsorship networking associations as well. You benefited from the network of FIDA and then the sponsorship that came from that as well. And you've gone ahead to open doors for other women as well, so you send the ladder back down for other people. Thank you very much. Thank you. My next question is to the Leonard Seal from Mr. Usman. Sir, your practice that is reading about you is centered on constitutional law, election petitions, public interpretation, matters where a single briefing decision doesn't just determine who will argue a case, but it's instructive in terms of who gets visibility, who gets promoted within the ranks. So it makes a difference, and that can make a difference between a lawyer who is seen and one who is left behind, and somebody who, where they're able to build reputation and presence within the bar. So my question to you is, in terms of operating at this the highest level of advocacy, or even the middle level of advocacy, where do you see women, standing in that briefing pattern today?
Thank you very much. Thank you, organizers, for the privilege of being here this evening. For me, brief is not simply a brief. A brief is a brief. It gives you an opportunity to be tested, to be trusted, to build a reputation, to have the voice to lead. So any brief that does not accompany these opportunities, as far as I'm concerned, is not a brief. For me, in every case, and in many cases I do, that are not tested, I don't consider it as a brief, irrespective of the material gain, irrespective of the finances. So when you talk about a brief, it must be one that gives the person a voice, an opportunity to be tested and trusted. In that wise, where the women stand in the same position like their male folks. And I say with every sense of responsibility. Our keynote speaker today is a woman who has built a reputation for herself. He is a woman who has trailed the blaze, a known figure. If she was not accorded the opportunity to have the brief that gave her the voice, she wouldn't have been there. But most importantly, why you give someone a brief, you talk of availability of the person to take the role. The most problem we have, and the major problem we have, is not the problem of who is taking this brief, who is not taking this brief, but who is ready, who is willing to take the brief. For me as a person, I have my colleagues here. I work more with female colleagues than the male colleagues because they are ready and they are willing. But I will not work with those who are not ready, who are not available. Because most times the cases you handle are time-bound. The cases you handle are sensitive cases. And these are cases that also give you the voice. So as long as a woman is ready, as long as a woman is ready, and is available. Personally, I am of the firm view, and I say this openly, that I give the women votes the opportunity to take a lead in my office as much as I give to the men. When you go further, you also check. And I was just discussing with my beloved brother here. When you talk about availability, you cannot give a sensitive case to the person who closes by 3, or once it's 4 o'clock, the person carries her bag and leaves. It is not possible. I stand to be corrected by my senior here, Mrs. I can't remember saying this here. You cannot give a brief to a person who closes by 4 o'clock and insists that that is my closing time. But as long as you are ready, as long as you are willing, and as long as you are available, any firm that does not afford that opportunity to be female is not fair, is not being engaging in a fair practice. And that is that.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you. To track on what you talked about in terms of availability, audience please, in terms of the availability of women and wanting to close early and all that. What do you think what do we need to do to ensure that we're able to cater for the specific needs? Because while we understand that availability is crucial in terms of who gets visibility within the firm, but they also have specific circumstances that makes these early closing hours important and necessary. Childcare concerns, family concerns, that the doctor said husbands, they need to go home to take care of you. So what do you think needs to change in the next 3 years? What do you think firms can do differently that can cater to these unique requirements of women while ensuring that they continue to provide visibility in the law firms that they practice in?
Thank you again. Today's practice is different from the practice of 20 years ago. Today, you can work from home. And our keynote speaker has said much about that. That unlike our time, that she have to take up her time to nurture her kids, today it is not the same. As much as I believe, because I'm also a husband and a father, that my wife needs the time to take care of my kids. When you are given a responsibility, you now have to strategize in the manner you can do it. In my office, for instance, I make sure that all the lawyers have laptops. It means you can work from home. But the situation, you give someone a laptop, you give the person more permission, you give the person the video, and then you give that person what to do. Take the work home, you can do from home, but the person is not available to do the work. If you fail, you are the one that failed, the person does not fail, because you are the one briefed. Personally, I believe in equal access. But the moment I give you the access and you don't utilize it, don't expect me to give the same responsibility.
Thank you,
and that is what I believe, and that is exactly what I practice. So I give all my lawyers equal opportunities, all of them give them laptops with all these guidance. So you don't have any reason to say, oh, because I'm now at home, I can't work from home.
Thank you.
I can't work from home, then you are not ready for the 21st century.
Thank you, flexible workload and then all the perks that come with working flexibly. We're being challenged that the work stops with us. So these access will be provided, these opportunities will be provided, but we also need to take good ownership of these things as well. So thank you very much, Dennis. I hope that at some point we hear that your firm has opened a daycare as well, so that women don't close so they don't close at
My firm is open with I have authority with the future. I do a lot of things with them. So it's an open place.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm not going to let attention to intersection of policy development, legislative drafting, institutional reform, including what rather than any work done on the Legacy Act, the Nigerian Data Protection Act, the Quebec Business Facilitation Act, and HAMA. These are all wonderful things that you've done. From your experience, ma'am,
where are women most likely to be excluded or underrepresented within this pipeline, within this journey? Would it be at the point of audience please, audience please, audience please, you've come to listen to the panelists, let them speak? From your experience, where are women most likely to be excluded or underrepresented along that journey? Would you say it's at the point of legislative drafting, parliamentary consideration, just reforms needed by leaders to ensure that women don't just come into the pipeline, but are retained within the pipeline and then rise with the ranks as well?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, all. Please permit me also to stand or sit, as the case may be, on the well-established protocol for the event. Please also let me start by thanking the organizers, particularly, of course, Princess Hadiza Ibrahim, the state lead for the FDA Women's Forum FCT chapter or FCT branch, for the opportunity to speak as a panelist at this event, and also to commend her and the entire FDA Women's Forum, starting with the national president, of course, in terms of all the initiatives that they have implemented in the last 2 years. Very laudable initiatives which are targeted at supporting women in our medical profession. So to go straight to answer this question, I think when people think about legislative work, they tend to think about the legislature. We talk about how many women are in parliament, how many women do we have, and of course the second session is going to do a lot of justice to that when they discuss the special seats bill. But you see, the work actually starts well before that. It starts with first identifying that there's an issue for regulation or determination or intervention. And then there's the policy aspect of it, where you then have to develop a policy, and then you then have to then translate the policy to legislative language, and then it then moves on to the legislature for them to debate and then to pass as into law. So at the policy stage, the question is where are we going? Right? This is the most important part because, as I said, it's underneath the law. And so the question now, the exclusion first starts with the policy stage. Like, are the women being invited for those discussions at that point? So we have a lot of policies that are not gender responsive. Gender responsive to the extent that gender assessments, impact assessments were not even conducted. The idea of gender impact assessment is that you have a policy that you're developing. You need to be able to say, well, how is this going to impact on men and women? Is it going to affect women disproportionately or not? How are you going to mitigate that? Where's the cost? Where's the exclusion? And so it starts right from there. So if you're working on a policy and then you don't have a system for inviting the women to have these conversations, then the law is already flawed, right? And so, again, that will be my response to those kinds of situations. At the point where you're having these conversations at policy level, you must have gender impact assessment processes. You must examine that policy, and there must be the women in the room, they must be having those conversations. They must be asking those questions about how the law is going to function, how the policy is going to come into life. And so, easy example, and I'll lean on what fabulous keynote speaker, Mrs. Akeri delivered during her speech when she talked about what we have currently with the SAM. And this is something that I have had the privilege to actually discuss with the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So last year, I was the advocacy chair for WINDIS, and the focus was on women in law. And so we were examining barriers, what are the barriers that are affecting our leadership pathways in law. And then we saw the dismal figures, like she rightly pointed, over 800 11 sales exist, and less than 60 are women. And we've seen the current list of about 65, I think, for coming up in October, and only 4. In fact, one of the persons that's going to receive sale had mentioned to me that there were 6, and then they were reduced to 4 at the point of shortlisting. So if we're going to reach 1,000 in a couple of years and still women will be under 100. So clearly, for me, and this was an outcome of rigorous discussions and review, there is a problem, there's an institutional framework that exists that doesn't support women getting there. And that indeed, perhaps when this was formulated, there wasn't a gender impact assessment. Because there are certain peculiarities that women actually go through that is not considered in those processes, because if you were then putting together guidelines, you must then be taking cognizance of the fact that women have to undergo those things. It's reality. I was talking to my fellow panelists as well, were listening to the sessions, and I was saying that it's actually quite unfair, and it's not equitable, that women have to continually do the work times to push hard, tenacious, It is not equitable. And so the institutional framework just demands that we must do twice as hard, we must push, we must be resilient. I mean, so resilience cuts across every profession and everything that we do. But there are certain circumstances that you don't have to be. By the way, Lenin says, we have a friendship bound in my office. And that is one of the things that we have to be able to accommodate. Because if you want them to function as effectively, then you must also provide the enabling environment and acknowledge that those things exist, right? And so that is one of it. Secondly, it has to do, and I guess maybe this is a point to make the MBA Westboro. It's also about matching and ensuring that there's also a training. We must have a steady pipeline of women who can actually have conversations on policy. So how are we going to ensure that there are training sessions? How are we going to ensure that women are there legislative drafting, they have the skills, they're able to understand policy, to formulate policy, and speak as women, not as men, because again there's this trend that say you must act like a man and all of these things. I'm not from that, yes. So yes, we must speak in those things, but we must have a steady pipeline of women, because we're saying that policies are being fashioned every day, but then where are the women in the room? So we also have to ensure that sponsorship, and this is something that we talked about, for the people who have the opportunity to do that, how well are you there also ensuring that you're speaking for these women to ensure that they're in the room? Reform commissions, technical sessions, technical committees, we have to ensure that they are part of that conversation. Otherwise, the institutions that we're building will not be fit for purpose. In essence, it still means that we still have 4% of women in parliament, we still have 33% of women in the judiciary. We will still have to get to know leaders, and it's the same thing across different professions. So I guess maybe that is some of the things that we should be considering. So firstly, we should ensure that the agenda should be institutionalized. There should be a policy on women participation in policy, if that makes sense. So that in itself should be the case that at the point where it is being done, there's a policy that women must be part of those discussions, and so can then ask the right questions for the policy, and so that it can then move on to. So same thing for consultation. So I said the process is it starts with what? It starts with developing the policy. Then the consultations, what is the stakeholder mapping? Right? Who are the institutions that are ensuring that are part of those discussions? I was watching a program recently and I saw a role of women, I think it was on TV. And I said, oh wow, there's some guy here. And I said to myself, but yeah, the thing that you see is really a panel of men. And so it's become so innate, it's become so normal, right? So we need to also normalize that as well to ensure that stakeholder mapping is made, and it's not a concept, right? But stakeholder mapping, you have to ensure that when you are designing your policy, you ensure that the right people are there, and that's important. So that's the consultative side. So we said one in the design, then secondly we said in the consultation, then we said in the drafting, translating policy to legislative language. You have to be able to develop it in such a way as you are speaking, even in the terms that they are putting into the law. Again, the women have to be part of that process. So we talked about capacity building and all of that. And then of course the last bit in terms of exclusion is the legislature itself, when it comes here, how do you ensure that they're there? And then, of course, Leonard also spoke about this influence. They are there, but how do you ensure that their voices matter? So we've all followed the news of some of our sectors that have been stepped down in terms of having conversations without being names. We're very familiar with that. They are there, but they don't have the voice. How do we ensure? So again, it's now about measuring. What you don't measure, you will not get done. How much of that, so they're there, how much of their voice translates into what's being passed? Are they listened to? Is it implemented? So we have to also ensure that there's a way of tracking women's involvement, even just getting into the room and ensuring that that influence is there. Because they can be there, but they're not actually influencing the outcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So from what Mr. Chair has said to us today is that gender representation, diversity is not a nice to have. It is an integral part of policy formulation and the entire pipeline of activities that involves. So thank you very much for that insight. And I'll turn attention now to Mr. Brooker.
Thank you very much.
You appeared in high-profile civil and criminal matters from the lowest courts to the Supreme Court across that full hierarchy. My question to you is, where have you seen women advocates present and rising, and where have you seen them thin out or altogether absent? But beyond identifying these gaps, what specifically do you think needs to be done to close these gaps? Okay. So, for instance, what are the one or two concrete changes that you think needs to be done across chambers and across courts to make sure that in the next 2 years there's a commensurate closing of that gap, so that women come in or retained within the pipeline?
That's one question.
Sir?
Well, that's one question.
Yeah, that's still for a reason.
Well, I think that before I answer that question, Mr. Kiradun, we must thank you for your presentation. And I think that for me, I want to take my brief pro bono to maintain an action against the NBA Women Forum. Yes, for putting together this panel on inclusion and that had a disproportionate representation of 4 men and 2 women. I mean, 4 women and 2 men. So I was thinking,
we're balancing previous injustices.
Well, my moderator is still disproportionate. Anyway, in addressing the question that you have raised, I think that the first thing we need to appreciate is the fact that women in Nigeria, particularly in the legal profession, have held the line by themselves very well. And I am not saying any female senior advocate in Nigeria, any judge in Nigeria, whether the CJN, the PCA, or anybody at all, who has attained that height today simply because that person is a woman. Now, all those who are senior advocates or judges have attained those heights because they married them. And I think that is the difference between the women in Nigeria and elsewhere. In fact, I've had cause to tell someone that I feel that women in Nigeria are even performing better than what we have in the United States, because it took that country over 200 years to have a female presidential aspirant of a major political party. And in fact, in the Republican Party in the United States, we don't even have it because nobody has got it at that time. But I don't see Nigerian women allowing that to happen, because we have had more than one CJN. We have had more than one president of the Court of Appeal. We have uncountable number of senior advocates of Nigeria. The keynote speaker is a mentor not only to female lawyers, but he's also a mentor to male lawyers like us. In fact, she has supported a friend of mine who is a man to become a senior advocate of Nigeria. So that is not somebody who wants to that height because he or she, because he's a woman. Now, some of us grew right from our childhood. I went to a primary school in which my main competitor in school at that time was a girl called Shimi. I won't forget. Because if I'm not coming first, she will come first. If she's not coming first, I will come first. And we continue that way. So as kids, for us there was no difference. It was growing up that I got to discover that, okay, fine, there's this educational thing. But I think it's happening because at a point in time, more men were going to school than female were. Where we are now, you have almost an equal number. And yes, you have almost an equal number, except in some few states. Now that is where so we had that situation then because of the level of education that was prevalent at that time. But that has changed. So coming to the issue of in the course of my practice, I would say that in terms of electoral resolution, criminal matters, civil matters, and the rest, I would wish to see more women in criminal litigation. Taking the front role in that, because you still have more men as it relates to that. In electoral disputes, of course, we still have a lot of men because of the nature of that particular kind of practice and the fact that you do a lot of travels, you meet people at quarters and all of that. I've met many colleagues who tell me that well, they don't want to do that. So I'm not saying they're not there, but I'm saying they should be more in that. As it relates to the bench, Nigerian women are doing far better, but they're doing very well. At the point in time in the Lagos High Court, in the High Court of Lagos State, you have more female judges than male judges. And I think that is the situation in our today. Now when it comes to heads of courts, whether it is the north, the south, or the east, you have female judges who are risen to become chief judges of their states. They get it on their points. Now the other aspect of this issue, the other aspect of the question which you asked is in the corporate world, you tend to have, I think you said something about the corporate world.
Yes.
Good. Now in the corporate world, you tend to have women rise faster. You have better working environment. You have a more structured career and career paths. You have law firms who are operating in line, providing more incentives, and also being sensitive to the place of the woman in their workplace. Now, I don't know how many litigation law firms have such arrangement of the military, have such arrangement of in the law firm. You have a place where women who are with childbearing age and have kids come and have a playground, have a nanny to take care of all of that. I don't know how many law firms have that, but I wish to see that what important is doing that you will have more women in litigation who, even if they already have bearing age, will still be able to function even in the law firm, not even at home. So I think that those are the areas that I feel you have strength, and also you have some challenges that you need to take from that.
Thank you, and still,
So here you're just reflecting on the things you talked about in terms of, you mentioned that at apex level, women appear to be doing very well, and that is indeed a fact as you identified. But I think the issue remains as good as a middle class problem, if it, as well, where you don't see women. You see them at the entry position, you see a few at the top position, but it appears as though the middle class is totally non-existent. And you rightly identified issues that are barriers to this: childbearing, audience needs, childbearing, travel restrictions because of family obligations. So it will be, like I said, it will be good that after this conversation in this room, that people who are those of us who own your firms and are in the position of influence and authority can go back home and say, how can we ensure that we have a middle class of women, not just at the big bottom and a few sprinkled at the top? What can we do differently? You mentioned, social facilities like crèches and all of those things. So it'll be good to have all of these implemented so that we have chinwes competing with their male counterparts, along the course of their career without dropping out.
Well, I think that the middle cadence of the legal profession is usually the most important, both for male and females. Because as you're coming in as a young lawyer, there are a lot of things that you can. But at the legal stage, there are a lot of things that you face a lot of challenges. before you now gravitate to the higher field. But I think that the NBA and the women forum, the legal profession itself should be more gender sensitive in the sense that we should begin to insist, just the way we have now with chamber inspection for SAN. You must have A, you must have B, you must have C. So I would suggest that the women who can make over, law firms should also
Please,
yes,
allow the minister to speak, please.
yes, law firms should also create avenues to recognize the fact that if you have female within the childbearing age who will have children that they will have to take up maybe a nursery room, maybe a play with them. I mean, if the legal practitioners, the practical privilege committee, start insisting on that, we may not get there in a year or two, but at least we start moving towards that. If that is done, it will assist female lawyers at the middle tier to also not 100% as a male counterpart, but at least there will be a little buffer and a little room for them to let that sensitivity be there. I think that will help.
Thank you so much. So what you're advocating for today is institutional reform within the NBA such that it's institutionalized and women are not dropping out by virtue of whatever that middle category is. Thank you very much. So now go to Dr. Eswara for the second question. If there are institutional structures within Abuja, audience in an NBA Abuja branch announced, and also said that first PC, announced that rather first PC of the CIR in Abuja. Arbitration is, one of the most powerful venues in commercial and institutional justice. Carrying as much weight as cutting judgment. We found this experience. However, it still remains male-dominated. It still remains male-dominated at the senior level. What do you think? How would you identify the stance between women and greater leadership there? I will now ask for our responses to be quite short as the MC is telling you around the discussion.
The question I'm asked to answer now is
let's allow her speak, please.
What's the barrier between human rights and
within the ranks of arbitration, not only litigation?
Yes, and I would say the situation also applicable in ethical arbitration. It's a question of access. They tell you disability. Disability means you have the money to move. It means you're traveling everywhere, you're attending conferences, you're being seen, and then you're in the club. The examples I will give you the brief. I'm happy that you're not only to speak, because therein lies the problem. If you ask them what are the issues, they will show you the female SAM. They will show you the judges that are heads of courts. They will show you a country one, like go to that side, and what happened, those who have succeeded. They ignore the mass, the place where the women really are in the thick, the women who stand in line and vote, the women who clap for the men who rise. They ignore the part where women are stopped. Hey, I started work with IMN late IMN one of the past presidents of NBA. When I chased him down, the question I had to answer was, have you discussed this with your husband? How is he going to feel about your not being able to do Ofonubo and the jam when we demand sex? And this was me, a woman who was a teacher, who had a master's degree level and was teaching, and then went to study law as moving away from that. All I had to answer was, sir, I have 5 children. I studied law while I was teaching children of lecturers, my lecturers. I was teaching their children and I was studying law. I've been able to do that and now 3 others. I had 2 before I went to study masters, and I have this other 2. This is a hard-working woman. My husband by now knows that he doesn't get pounded yam and on demand. He will have to eat the refrigerated version because I have learned how to combine my own, my work, and find the balance. Women to get to where it is. Hey, don't listen to me. I'm talking to you now. Because I'm sorry I'm sounding like this because people will now say, oh, she's aggressive. I'm being very I'm trying to get you to understand. And when I speak, it is not about you who are listening. It is about those who are not listening. There are SAIs who don't pay more than 50, up to 50,000 naira. So they do, and these are women who have to wear do hair, do nails. And some of them are still dating. They will be married. And you dated. And you expected attention from the people you were dating before you married. So these are women who are going through this process. And we're talking about mentoring. It is the person who needs mentoring that approaches a mentor, not the other way around. And we have many girls who are not able to pay their bills. And they're looking at you're not doing too well either. Why should they come to you for mentoring? So we have these guys. We need to find how to feel them. Do not answer as if we're teaching you or anything. We're not. We're trying to draw a plan that will be useful going forward. For the children who are coming through me at days, who want to go out and practice. Am I even addressing It's a lesson and we're going to learn from how the progression of that. Because part of what confuses MBA is this tenacity, this election mania. Now we have a new president-elect, yes? People who want to be there for 2028, 2030, they are already campaigning as me. And the women are not. The women are not even aware of what's happening. He said, we don't fight for positions. We declare positions that are vacant. All those who are available will come in. And if there is contestation, they will have an election. If they just enough people to fill in the vacancies, they will start enhancing people in their own advocacy.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So, Dr. has yes, a round of applause for her. A round of applause for Dr. The lioness of the bar has come to know today. So what she's advocated for is, in addition to institutional reforms and everything else, is personal grit, resilience, and determination. As bad as, it's unfortunate that we have to work twice as hard, but it's a current reality, and until institutions shift, we will continue to fight as hard because that's what we're known for as women. And like our keynote speaker said, all of that and remain pretty.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Dr. Adeyemi, I'll come to you now. As FC coordinator of the African Women Lawyers Association, where mentorship is a huge part of your daily mandate, not just a talking point, it's a lived experience for you. Would you say mentorship is enough on its own? What would be a genuinely effective, institutionally backed mentorship pipeline that will work and produce the outcomes that we're hoping for today?
Thank you for that question. When we talk about mentorship, it goes beyond the talking points, which most of us do. Action is very, very important when we talk about mentorship. And beyond mentorship, we need to go further and ensure that there's sponsorship. And responding based on the feedback we've had so far. Mentorship alone cannot get us to where we desire to be as female lawyers. So it is beyond mentorship. I'm trying to reframe the question. Now, when we talk about mentorship, don't just think at that. I'll get back to mentorship. We need sponsorship. Because without sponsorship, we won't have the visibility that we require. And that's where we see that women are included, largely included. But we have the outcome. So the inclusion is what I would say falls under the category of mentorship. Sponsorship, which I think is more important, takes us to that level that we ought to be. And then after the sponsorship, we need career plan. And that was why earlier I mentioned the importance of MBA Women Forum. of at 1 to 10 have a tool that will ensure that every single female lawyer that is being churned out is properly mentored, is perhaps consulted, given a career plan, and then reviews are done yearly. Having said that, now I go to mentorship. Mentorship gives us knowledge, because it's through mentorship that the mentor is able to give the mentee the knowledge of what to do per time. It gives us the perspective and the encouragement that we need. But beyond that, we need sponsorship. Now, when we don't talk about sponsorship, I give kudos to Dr. Odeon just before. Well, she's always encouraging women to buy the position. But when we have sponsorship, we take advantage of the sponsorship that we have. We have a lot of women in NBA Abuja branch. Look at us, look at everything. That's part of the challenge that women have. When you give women the opportunity, most of us decline. For whatever reason, I do not know. That's by the time we get the mentorship. Mentorship is very important. Sponsorship is important. But career plan is what I would say is most important, because even senior lawyers want to understand career plan. When you ask a lawyer what area of practice are you interested in, I dare say half of these all may not even have an idea of the area that they have passion for. We do guesswork. So the moment we're able to organize ourselves and begin to give people the kind of career plan that's good for them, make them realize how to put the wrong thing in the wrong place, it will help. And we don't only do this through this kind of conversations that we're having. Now, having said that, when we talk about mentorship too, it is also important that we are properly educated. Most people are not properly educated, that's what I see. When you try to mentor someone, they do not even understand what you are trying to do. They do not even appreciate that you are trying to help them. So when we go from there, we have to go back to the basics. We have to teach, we have to learn, we have to teach ourselves to unlearn, relearn, and all that. And yes.
Thank you. Yes, please, thank you. We'll now have 2 minutes for the last three panelists. Ms. Bashir, quickly, please, audience, please. Ms. Bashir, I'll just summarize the questions for you. You have active participation in WIMBY, in WISCA, and we support her. In terms of what's the one thing, she's talked about AWLA. What's the one thing that WIMBY or WISCA does structurally that a typical law firm mentorship program doesn't? So in terms of what practical steps can senior women, law firms, professional bodies, and institutions take to build a sustainable pipeline of women leaders, as we're talking about today. So now we've gone beyond identifying problems. We're talking about solutions now. What is that? One or two are talking points. Keeping this under 1 minute, please. Apologies. Yes, so I don't think I can say anything different from what we heard in terms of mentorship. It's not just a nice to have, it's actually very key to us getting there. But in the interest of time, I would like to ally myself, in terms of what she had said. I ally myself totally, and since I'm here, I'm very ready to be here in the House of Representatives. I'm also asking the House, requesting if you're in support of what we learned. Everything she said, I align. Please, audience, we put this into a vote. So is it, so may, may the persons who support, in terms of what she said about the fact that there are institutional barriers, that there are spotlights of people that they always use as examples, but that is not supported by data, that the data is 4% here, 20% here. Yes, big audience and participants. It is unfair for a speaker to have the mic and the room is louder than the speaker who has the mic. I beg, please, dear participants, at this point it's a bit, it's not proper representation of ourselves.
What she's talking about is advocating for our benefits, and we're speaking above her. Can we please allow her to speak? Thank you.
Just to say that there's nothing really to add. It's all of these things we've spoken to. I identified that the institutional barriers, we need to start changing them. We need to start doing gender, looking forward, but also looking backwards. Because we need to do gender impact assessments for what's already existing. For us to be able to pinpoint those things that are not benefiting us, we can create opportunities through sponsorship, but we cannot even take so far in the system stacked against you. And so you can only rise so far. So we're going back to institutional reforms. You have to ensure that those systems work for men and women. Otherwise, no matter how many sponsorships we have, it won't translate into the kind of outcome that we want in terms of traction. And so, all in support, say aye. Aye. And ayes are it. Say the ayes are it.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'll come to Leonard Silk, Mr. Eastman, and then to Leonard Silk, Mr. Booker as well. And it'll be the same question for both of you. What role do you think male allies should play in advancing all that we talked about today? So we've identified problems, identified solutions as well. But our male allies are he or she's. What role do you think, practically speaking, can be, or should be played going out of this room to ensure that the women continue to have accurate representation, entry point, middle cadre, and to the top? What is your role as a male ally to women in the profession? Segue from what you've already said.
In my view,
Speaking to the mic.
in my view, equitable access to opportunity. Once you give both the male and female equitable access, I believe they can guide them. If woman can do better, if given equal opportunity as that of the male folk, a woman can be committed, a woman can be trusted in all ramifications when given equal access to an opportunity. And I believe that for every woman that is given an equal opportunity to be able to do better. So take it from here. I advocate for equitable access to both male and female, and that is what I stand for.
Thank you very much, Elisa. Thank you. Equitable access, not only does he speak about it, he practices it as well within his own firm. So thank you very much, sir, for providing that response. Now let's see, Mr. Burke, same question to you. What do you think, what is that in terms of male allies in advancing gender inclusion within the institutions without diminishing merits? Because you mentioned that as well. What do you think needs to be done by the male folks to ensure that gender is advanced but merit is not diminished? Thank you very much, sir.
I think that whether male or female, as leaders of the we must be able to instill one thing in the life of a lawyer or lawyers when they come in contact with us, which is that as far as the law is concerned, there is something you can never ever miss, and that is diligence. I've said to my lawyers, and I said to anybody that I mentor, that look, you may be the most intelligent lawyer in the world, but if you are not diligent, nobody will even know and appreciate that intelligence. Because you 5% out of time, you come to complaints, you don't go to meetings on time, clients will wait for you at the leave. But if you are diligent, even if you are not the most intelligent, you will always get things done. And that is why even the Bible says, show me a man who is diligent in his work, he shall sit in the presence of kings. Now, that applies to both genders, male or female. Now, coming to the issue, to the question you asked on I believe this law. I believe the law knows no gender. Knows no gender. Yes, that's the way I see it. And then when you have that at the back of your mind, you get to understand that because biologically we have been created a little bit differently. in order to prevent, in order to prevent one gender from being seen as if, well, I'm at a disadvantage, you have a duty as the leader to ensure that you create that environment that will cover the inequalities. And that is it. It means that you have to adjust some timing, you have to adjust, adjust to certain realities. Yes, you have to also understand that apart from what you have in the office, you also have somebody who needs to have a happy home so that the person will be able to deliver a happy job for you. So I think I want to do that with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the esteemed panelists. I put you under a lot of pressure today. We had more questions, but we're pretty short of time. I've been asked to round up this panel session. I really want to thank you. We've covered a lot of ground today, from entry points, arbitration, briefing decisions, legislation, the courtroom, and all of that. But what I would ask and advocate for is that, to everybody who is on this panel and to those who have influence in this room, let us not end at conversation level. Let us go home today with that one thing that we would like to change, to ensure that we go beyond talking points into actual implementation and change, so that 2 years from now we're no longer having this conversation. I thank each one of our panelists for a rich conversation. I apologize again for rushing you. I'm unable to take further comments.
There's two genders in humanity, female and male. There are differences and they are accommodated. The level playing field will have to be lowered because of years and years of irregularity. If we keep saying the law does not recognize gender, we will never get anything right.
Thank you, Dr. Izora, for that point as well. She's advocating for the acknowledgement and the recognition of raw genders. Thank you once again to the leadership of the NBA Women's Forum at FCT chapter. Thank you to esteemed panelists, everyone in the God bless you. Thank you very much. We will take a panel picture now. We will take a panel picture with the leadership. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'll just invite our keynote speakers, like I have the senior leaders of Nigeria, to join the panel. Join the panel for a group photograph just in front of the podium. We have a few of them pushing off. We sincerely apologize for keeping you. So we'll have the award right after the next session. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Mutadi, who is the Program Manager, Legislative and Gender Issues Class. Please give her a round of applause. We also have with us Abdul Mohammed Sapida, the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Managing Partner, Nadia Legal Council. Please give him a round of applause as he joins us on stage. Thank you so much, Lenny, for your time. We have with us Dr. Natasha Oyibo, who is the founder of Amiemi Foundation for Maternal and Child Health. She will also be contributing to this conversation on the special system. Please give her a round of applause. We have with us this afternoon Aisha Yasufu, who is a socio-political reformer, educator, human rights activist. We welcome her with a big round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us. We have with us Beatrice Ayon, who is the United Nations Women Resident in Nigeria and ECOWAS. Please give her a round of applause as she joins the conversation. And I will now yield the floor to Mr. Isaiah Bosibo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, to join this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So before we started this panel, somebody said something about this audience. Should I tell you what it is? I shouldn't tell you. Okay. Someone told me that the audience is not really interested in this conversation. There's going to be a lot of noise. I'm going to keep saying, stop, listen to us. And do you know what I told you? Should I tell you what I told you? I said, this is the NBA Women's Forum. Right? And they are here to participate in this conversation, not just listen, but actually contribute. So at the end of the conversation, we'll see who was right, whether those naysayers who said you will not listen and be noisy, or if it's me who said you're going to actually actively contribute to this conversation. But in all seriousness, I want to thank the NBA Women's Forum. First, for two things. First of all, for convening this conversation. I think it's an incredibly important discussion for us to be having, particularly in the current climate where we find ourselves. Secondly, thank you for inviting me to moderate, because I can think of much more eminently qualified people, including those in this room, who would have done a much better job. But I'm happy to have the opportunity to engage with this panel on this very topic. And if I may just draw your attention, I think it's on page 30 to 32 of the brochure. You will see the profile of the panelists. So in order to jump straight into the conversation, I will skip it. But I'm sure you know who each and every one of the panelists are. Let me ask a quick question as we start. Who has actually read the special seats bill? Hands, show of hands. Have you read it? Show of hands. Have you read the special seats bill? You've read it? Fantastic. Okay, excellent. But there are more hands down than hands up. And I would encourage you to read it. Because the special seats bill is an expression of a solution to what we have diagnosed as a problem. So what is that problem? We are currently in the National Assembly, right? And of the members of the National Assembly, women occupy 20 out of 469 seats. That's about 4% of the representatives. In the Senate, you have 4 senators out of 109. In the House of Reps, you have 16 members out of 360. Okay. Now, in terms of how we rank, let me even ask you, how do you think we rank globally? There are 188 countries that we measure in terms of female participation in parliament. Where do you think we rank out of 188? What do you think? At the bottom, how about 183? Right? Okay, it's towards the bottom. There are only 5 countries that are worse than us. So we rank 176. And this is data that was published almost on a weekly basis, the most recent of which was published on the 1st of August. by the Inter-Parliamentary Union. I would encourage you again to read this so we know what is the problem we're trying to solve. Now let me ask you this. Is the problem in and of itself that there are not enough women in Parliament? Is that the problem we're trying to solve? What do you think? You can tell me if you disagree, that's fine. It's part of the problem. All right, so we'll come there. So how does the bill try to solve the special seats bill? I've seen two versions of this bill. The long and short of it is that it is creating additional seats in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, in the House of Assembly, that is exclusively for women. And depending on the version of the bill you read, those women will be elected either through direct election through something called the Electoral College, similar to what you have in the US, or the regular elections. And we'll come to see whether the bill actually solves the problems that are inherent in society. So what I think the bill is doing, it's diagnosing the process of the problem as a lack of seats. So in order to solve it, it is creating additional seats, but we'll see whether that actually solves what the underlying problem is. And to have a conversation, Aisha, I'd like to start with you, if I may, because you have a unique perspective. At least very recently, I recall seeing you on the news saying you intended to run for the Senate under the auspices of the Nigerian Democratic Congress. Now, starting at the primaries or starting at the political party seems to be a natural place to start, at least for the constitutional elected offices. That's the gateway. You can't stand for election unless you're a member of the political party and that party sponsors you. Now, interestingly, we just had political primaries and there was a coalition of civil society organizations that looked at the spectrum of all political parties and found that only 3 women won a senatorial primary. So you have been in the political forum. What is the problem? What are the obstacles that women actually face in political parties in Nigeria? And more importantly, what are the obstacles that this bill have to solve?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I think before I go ahead to that question, I'm going to start from somewhere. And somehow I think I was in the other class. Yes, I was triggered. Dr. Selman, thank you so much. I love you. The thing is, when we talk politics, right, we think of politics as adulthood when you join a political party. But I say to every one of us, politics started from our childhood. You see that time when girls stayed at home, they were washing plates, sweeping the house, making sure the house was clean, and the boys were outside playing ball, they were doing politics. The power, it comes from who owns the ball, who comes to the ball, then you know what have to do to negotiate for you to be on the team. That's politics happening, right there, and when women are not there. Recently, I've used the issue of probability. When we talk about probability, we say, in school, in March, we were taught black balls, red balls. You have 20 black balls, and you have 5 red balls. The probability of picking a black ball will always be more than the probability of picking a red ball. It's the same thing in politics. In this Nigeria, and I was quite surprised when I heard earlier that, in law, it doesn't recognize male or female. From the little I know, I think in UK they had to redefine their law in terms of when they talk about self-defense. Because for a woman, the way a woman will act, she's not immediate. The man will see something is done to him, immediately he acts. That is called self-defense. A woman will pile it up, it takes time before she then will act, which then they will say, oh, no, that's not self-defense, because you had time to be able to think it through. So there's a recognition of that. The same way, in terms of our politics, you get to a place where you have gone to school, right? There are a lot of women today who are not working because their husbands ask them not to work. So how do they make, or they're not doing certain jobs they're supposed to do, or they're not earning certain kind of money? Because at the end of the day, as a woman, you're not expected to have too much money. Even when you have businesses, that is why you see a lot of women, they grow their businesses horizontally instead of vertically. Instead of taking it to the church, they'll be doing different things. You know, just so that either you're not too much, you're not wealthy than your husband, or you're not too wealthy. And I'm sure if we count in this room, if we're very factual, there are ladies here who have the money to be able to buy cars, but they've been told not to buy cars because if they buy car, no man will come and marry them. I wonder who wants to marry a man that will not have a man that wants to buy car. I'm trying to tell you what the ideas are beyond just, because a lot of times they're told that, women have the numbers, why can't they just do for themselves? But women don't have the agency. A lawyer was asked what kind of whether our husband will eat food. The man not ever eat food. That is a job interview that the man never has to take. Nobody asks you that. Before, even in politics, like I said to people, I have my last one is 24 years, right? So at this stage I can do, I'm not doing school runs and all of that. And I can do a lot of politics that someone who is doing school runs cannot actually do. By the way, when they talked about women being in litigation more, I'll just refer to because all of these things, they come together. If more men will take responsibility in the house, in terms of child upbringing and maintaining the house, then there will be more women in this litigation and all of that. Because the major business here is that one person has been silent. In a Nubu, I was on a panel, and a senior advocate of Nigeria, when he was asking questions, he stood and he said that his daughter is a lawyer, but her husband has prevented her from going to law school. Guess what? Who was blaming his own daughter for the choices that she made. So these are issues, that keep women from attaining that position that they're supposed to have. We come back now. For me, honestly, going forward, let me digress a little bit. I think we need to stop this conversation of women equality and all of that. When we are having women come together to be. What we should be talking about is how do we ensure that women are on the seat when discussions are going on. And if there is no table, if there is no seat at the table, then yes, you bring your own chair. If there is no chair, sit or bring your mat. If there is no mat, sit on the floor and have a conversation. But we all have conversation. Let's come back to this. For me, this bill is for the 10th assembly. It's for them to be the members for something. Because right now, I don't know what they will be the members for. For them, it is on them. And a lot of people say, the women they are allowed to come out and do all of that. We have something called central character in Nigeria. I'm from Edo State. In Edo State, I'm from Edo North. I'm from Esako. I am minority amongst minorities. In this country, we have 3 major tribes, right? The whole positions in Nigeria can be occupied by even one tribe. They have competent people that will occupy those places. They have the numbers. Why did they have a federal character? The federal character was put in place so that every minority will be taken care of. Because that's why the law says you must have a minister from every state. It's the same thing that is being done here with the special state. It's almost like the federal character. To say that let women have this seat, be able to come in, and it's for 15 years. But the thing is that sometimes you wish for something and it doesn't turn out that way. Because at the end of the day, what we usually have is tokenism. If you're a woman who is competent, if you're a woman who has character capacity, in politics, you won't do well. Do you know how you will do well in politics? You'll be MOU. If they say no, to say how high. Then they know this person can be controlled. This person can be put in place to do this thing. That's what is happening. So if what we do with this thing is to say, let's have this 15 years where women will be brought in, they will come in, and after that, let the status quo go to where it is. And I'm happy they talked about, the midpoint, where a lot of women drop off. The special advocate, senior advocate that talked about the lady who they used to take friends together, right? I almost wanted to ask for my seat to say, does he know where she is now? Probably one man can tell her, don't do anything. And by the way, I'll stop here to add on something. My husband What I'm talking about was because he brought a perspective that I never looked at in terms of working from home. He's an accountant. He's a chartered accountant. This year makes his 4 years to become a chartered accountant. I can't be a winner. And he said, when they ask people to work from home, a lot of people are not able to effectively work from home because you don't have 24/7 electricity. What you call the internet connectivity is a problem because they wanted some of their people to work from home. So you have that, coming in. And also, I will end here by saying we need to look at gender roles. We should be doing, what kind of strength-based roles rather than gender-based roles. Because that's one of the things that keeps women down. And my own example, because when I see a lot of people who say to me, I've seen a lot of gentlemen, and I'm happy we talked about the fact that most women that they talk about are the exception, not the more. No. When you're pointing at, oh, that's Aisha, she can talk. You know how many beating I receive before I begin to talk this talk? When they tell me, say, I don't know where my parents beat me. You understand? And also there's a support system. Because I have a husband who doesn't believe that, it's a gender thing to do this thing, like whose strength it is. And I'll give you an example. When we had, I'm not a modern person, you understand? I love my kids to be. You're not the one that, I'll be changing that. I don't people tell me, I can't do Omugo. We hire people that will do that, right? But my husband would take, when we had our child, our first son, he goes to work in the morning. I'm a businesswoman, and I don't wake up early. He takes care of the child, and he drops our son in school. I will be the one to pick him. I do the homework and all that. So it will be balanced thing. And so that helps. So if we're able to have that balancing from the house, it will go a long way. Thank you.
That intervention alone, speaks to broader underlying societal issues that this bill is trying to solve simply by creating additional seats. And one thing that resonated with me is how do we approach children from a young age? For instance, are we stereotyping them into saying, okay, a boy is expected to do this, a girl is expected to do this, therefore females are not expected to occupy positions of power? I'll give an example. I remember when I was 10, when I left my parents, and I stayed with my older sister, who was late. And it was, at the time, I felt it was the worst 6 years of my life. You know what? Every morning, wash plates, vacuum the floor, do your laundry. But now, those are the bedrocks of some of the most precious values to me, because it showed me how to organize myself, how to be responsible. And I've carried that through into my professional career, and I think it's worth exploring that even further. But one thing that came out of your intervention was this idea of inclusion, and your example was federal cabinet. Federal cabinet has its own problems, right? And I'm wondering whether the inclusion that this bill seeks to solve will also have its problems. And let me explain. Natasha, in your role, you work at the grassroots. You work in maternal and child health. You interact with women who see the actual societal problems. We're not talking top tier, middle tier, we are talking at the bottom. And the reality of it is that a lot of the people you interact with will never probably see or even gain to be elected to the National Assembly. Now, when you say inclusion for who? Right? Is the bill serving the community you serve? Or is it only for a special select group of women?
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this fantastic summit and for including the civil society organizations. Now, you asked if the bill includes the women in these communities. I would say absolutely. I would say because of them, we should be having these sort of conversations. Through our work at the Ready Foundation, we work with women in communities, and first of all, we don't start by discussing politics. We start by discussing practical issues, pregnancy, childbirth,
water, sanitation, hygiene, access to healthcare, household decision making. And we start to find out that these are not just household concerns, these are actually the consequence of public policies and resource allocation. So although these women, they will never be part of, they might never be part of party primaries or running an election or contesting an election, but they are the ones dealing with the consequences of our political decisions. So absolutely, they are part of this and should be included at every stage.
Thank you. I'm going to push back, but not yet. I'm going to come to you. I'll come back to you further down the line. But we're still trying to diagnose the problem. Right? And I like the way Aisha began the conversation by saying, let's look beyond this again. Let's look at underlying societal factors. And Natasha took the conversation forward, say even though some people who might not be direct beneficiaries in terms of those being elected will feel the impact of the women who might be elected on these special seats, who will then serve their rights. Let's stay on in trying to diagnose the problem. Here I'd like to come to you. There was a very interesting interview I watched of you in Horizon, where you said, let me not put you on the board as soon as you got the recognition. You said that you really need money to run the country. And lots of women simply don't have that kind of financial capacity. So what I take from you is you were at the time at least identifying money as a barrier. Now, some political parties have attempted to address this. So for instance, you have political parties that will say, okay, we will incentivize it by saying women don't have to pay for the nomination form. Although many still have to pay for the threshold of interest form, which is actually still quite expensive. Now, there's this international group, it's called the Climate Endowment, and it looks at waivers of this kind of thing, waive fees for nomination form. And what it found that it actually makes no real difference in terms of the number of women put forward. And in June, like I said in my first intervention, across all the political parties, even with these interventions, only three women won primary, the Senate primary. So is the problem the money, or is it the gatekeeping? Is it the delegates that will actually elect these people through primaries?
Okay, thank you very much. To answer your question directly, I think both are mutually reinforcing. But before I go into details, I think the way you started the panel, I like the question that you put to the audience, because I was going to ask the same thing. How many of us are ready to? Most of us here are lawyers. This is a piece of legislation. It's actually a constitutional alteration bill that has been pending before the National Assembly, and I think it will be very good, and it will be important for us to actually understand the context and the implication of this constitutional alteration bill. And I think in the beginning, there's something you said that the problem and the diagnosis is that we need more or something. And I think diagnosing the problem, I think it's the very first step to understanding the solution. And in the past, the diagnosis have been that women need to do more. You need to get mentoring, educate yourself, do your networks. All that is important. And lots of women groups are doing very, very serious work. But people don't question the institution. So most times, they have located the problem of underrepresentation on women and women politicians and what women should or should not be doing, and not on institutions and the system, which I believe is skewed against women. So I think that's what this bill seeks to address. Then going back to your question on whether it's delegates, gatekeepers, or money, I believe in that interview I used the term watchers, like watchers. Yes, I use that term because in the course of my work, I get to speak with female politicians, my organization, Black, work with the National Assembly, and we have supported the constitutional alteration process since the 6th Assembly for over 10 years. And the women we have encountered and spoken to have consistently identified money as a barrier. If I were forced to choose, of course, I would pick money. But it's not the only barrier. There are so many things. Delegates are a problem. The new Electoral Act tries to eliminate the indirect delegate system. But we also saw what happened during primaries. That even the current system we have didn't, you still saw the gatekeeping there. So one is important because the delegates, generally having delegates and supporters within the party comes with financial costs. And we have to be very realistic. There may be ethical questions attached to this, and should you really be paying party members or should you be paying people to support you? But if you speak to women who have run campaigns, a lot of them will tell you, there are demands made for money. So having finances or financial resources is important. But it even goes beyond that. There's also the campaign expenses. Okay, so when you get a ticket, you still have to run a campaign, you have to travel, there's logistics. And then party agents, you actually have to get agents. If you do win the ticket, you have to get agents in all your polling units. And depending on your constituency size, that can run into hundreds of party agents. And we do election observation, and we have seen cases where party agents kind of abandon their candidates and go for the person who is able to, who has more money. So I am not justifying for saying this should be the case. These are things that need to change in the system, but those are the realities. And then there's also one forgotten aspect when it comes to contesting, and that's securing your mandate. That's a conversation that rarely happens. We did an analysis of election petitions, and we discovered that most cases, most people who go into elections don't accept the results. It ends up, it ends up in courts. So they are not only budgeting for nominations, they are budgeting for the campaign and the election itself. They are budgeting for the election proper, that's party agents, and then you have to put aside a pot for securing your mandate and if you lose and you think the elections were not properly conducted, of course you're going to have to challenge the elections and you have to pay your lawyer. The lawyer has to collect appearance fees and the rest of it. So that is why allocating money. But I think at the end of the day, I think they are mutually reinforcing because they are wealthy women who also have not been able to emerge through the delegate system. The nomination process is where a lot of women candidates lose out. And within 2027, let's read the news reports. There was a lot of opacity in the way parties conducted their primaries. In fact, I remember one man saying it was institutionalized gatekeeping. A lot of them were forced to step down. A lot of them were undermined during the primaries. And that is why you are having this very, should I say, ridiculous number. How can, in a country where more than 50% are women, how can, even repeating the statistics is embarrassing, saying that only 3 people are going on the ballots for 2027 across 22 parties, and you know what that means? It doesn't mean they're going to win. So you are looking at the National Assembly probably coming in 2027 with no woman in the Senate. If we think that's not a possibility, it's a possibility.
Thanks, Ikira. I should mention that Ikira, you work with Policy and Legal Advocacy Center. So PLAC has actually done a significant amount of work on the special system. So I really encourage you to read it, for sure. So we've been trying to diagnose the problem, and we've seen that there might be a licensing issues. There are certainly gatekeeper issues, and I would like to move the conversation forward to see whether the bill is actually solving some of those problems. And here I'd like to stay with you. One of the interesting things, at least I read in one way, is this idea of the electoral college. And PLAC has described the electoral college as a new state. It will be made up of, and I find this very interesting. So it's going to be made up of local government chairmen, their deputies, the councillors, members of the State House of Assembly, and members of the House of Representatives for their state. Now, you mentioned stats. So let's look at the stats in terms of representation within that budget. So women, 4% of local government chairmen, 5% of state assembly members, 4% of the House of Representatives. So in terms of gatekeeping, isn't that the same gatekeeping? Not the electoral college? Or just, you're giving it a different name. It's a different answer. The bill is given in a different name. It's just the same gatekeeping, wearing different clothes.
Okay, I think that's a very good question, and it's something we should not be away from. As an advocate for this bill, I think the revision to the specialist model is something a lot of us have to come to terms with. So just to provide a little bit of context, the original version of the bill proposed the direct election model where the nominations, the vote for elections, and then voters will come out and vote. So this version of the bill was introduced at the comments of the assembly, I think it was 9%, but it failed. So when the National Assembly was considering this method, the thinking then was that the constitutional election process will conclude long before the electoral calendar was released. But what happened, or what has happened, is that the constitutional election process is still pending. And then INEC released its calendar, just providing context on why the model changed. INEC released the electoral calendar, political parties on their primaries. So what happened is that some of the positions in the original version of the bill became no longer not feasible anymore in light of 2027. So what advocates, and the politicians in place and the bill was passed was see the constitutional version come into place, and then we have to wait to 2031 the electoral cycle. So I think what happened was that the leadership, because this proposal actually hasn't been voted, hasn't been discussed by members. I think it's very important to actually say that it's a model, that it's new, it's a new revision, a new revision is emerging, and I think there's still opportunity to, let's say, tweak or propose changes to it. So what the National Assembly thought was the leadership of the two chambers thought was primaries are passed, this bill on the elected passes. So how do we tweak or revise the bill so that it's 2027 and get all the parliament? So what they did was to change it into an indirect election model, which the state had to protect before. So that indirect election model has the position that you just described. And yes, the reality is that because the electoral college is now be composed of elected officials at federal, state, and local levels, they are majority men. So yes, it just appears that the same, the gatekeeping issue is not there. But I remember sitting with some women group leaders, thinking, my thinking was, they'll say, okay, this is my thinking. But the current sentiments, at least among us, we cannot give up, we can't abandon this, we come this far. Because there is still a guarantee of getting 157 more women. So there is a clear outcome from this bill, irrespective of the model that is being used. If it passes as it is in its former format, we are sure, or rather we are sure, certain that we're getting 157 billion. In addition to women contesting for primary seats. So it's not displacing the regular constituency system. Women who feel they want to go for the constituency, they have that option to take that back. So the bill is basically just creating a dual track, an alternative track. If this person wants primaries are over, then maybe we will consider that track. So yes, I understand the criticism, but the reality, like members want to tell you, is that the gatekeeping is a structural problem in Nigeria, and irrespective of which model is in place, it's still like a huge problem that we have to overcome. So the mechanism shouldn't have to suffer because we're educated. And I think it's something people are listening up to this morning. The electoral college will actually play as I interrogating. It's going to actually majorly hurt councillors, elected councillors. So I think if it passes, it's going to say something about local governance, which is something we really don't talk about because everybody is focused on national level, when we talk about the states. So most of the national college will be men, but most of them will be at the grassroots and the people at the state level. I think the federal level officials are smaller. So it's a case of finding the pathway for 2027 while still pursuing other complementary measures to increase political participation.
If I was pushing, it's a question I would want you to think about, but you can answer it this time. Is there a danger which creates a system where if somebody emerges through the regular elections, it's a legitimate process, at least human. If somebody is voted through the electoral college system, I think that seat might be worth less than the direct or the elections as we know it. Something people think about. Let me, if this bill is enacted today, as is, would you contest for one of the special seats?
No, because I am able to contest on any other seat. Answer to what you were asking now. If you are invited to a place, you understand, and the doors are wide open, you are able to enter, catwalk in, right? Very royal, as a royal and all of that. But if the door is shut against you, and you're trying to push it in, even if it's a food, a little bit of food, just to keep that way open. I think that's what's happening there. One of the also, and I get what you're saying, this is also a big concern in terms of the fact that this thing will now turn to tokenism. You're finding out that there are certain people who are going to decide the women that get into all this. And these are the patriarchs that have over the time used patriarchy to keep women subdued, then have the power to begin to choose who it is that is. And once I tell you something, they will choose the worst. Because they want to be able to say, after all they're giving you is nothing that you people are able to do. That's what we also see in elected positions, where women who really don't have the capacity are the ones who are put in there, and then they will tell you one thing. You know how we things that always happen, I think I want to mention that. In the fact that for women are always looked upon as one homogeneous group. So when a woman does something, almost every woman has to pay for what she has done. I tell people that they say, that's after all women, they give you for opportunity. They'll say, look at the Eziani, what she did. And I'm saying to them, for every Eziani, there are 1,000 Dasukis. The former security advisor. Nobody is telling anyone, any man, not to compete or be in office because of the corruption that many have done, over time. So it's very important, I get that. I get this whole thing whether the women are with their but the thing is this. Let's have them there, right? When we have them there, and then we begin to hold them accountable, if we can. But for me personally, I would prefer to go through, the last words and guiding everybody to get in there. And I'll tell you something. For example, in my own case, and we have to also look at it. As a man in Nigeria, in the world, you are judged based on what you have, right? Your resources. A woman is not judged as harshly. And I also say, no woman, no girl child was born. Nobody was born with pants and pots to come to this world. Neither was anybody born with checkbook. The one that will sit down and expect that, because you are a man, you don't have to do everything, pay the bills. It doesn't also make sense, to me. Because of that thing, as simple as that, we take this my being in the political space, we understood that men are ready to play ball more than women. Women are able to stand at a sanctimonious place to say that I will not do this, I will not compromise. And you look at it, the man is looking at it like, remember what I said, he's just based on what he has. He's the one that is expected to pay school fees. He's the one that is expected to do a lot of things. So some decisions that are made that will be made by a woman, by a man, the one that will say, I'm not doing. I'll give you my example. In my political party, I ran actually, not that I was thinking of running. So I did. I got before everything. I did everything. And I ran for Senate, right? And there were reasons why I ran for Senate. One was what happened to Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. And I felt also they had a representative who she's doing her best in her own way, but that's the best person doing enough for the people. And I wanted my principal to run. I wanted Abuja to be taking let's hope we have a strong vote in Abuja. I wanted to run for office in 2021. By the way, let me say this. I made up my mind after being in advocacy and realizing that all the problems, by the way, every conversation has to be politics. If you're talking about resource allocation, and all of that, it's politics. And how do you get people into office that then will give you good governance for the lots of problems that we have if you don't talk politics? So when I realized that most of the problems we have is because we have bad governance. So in 2021, I decided I was going to run. But I was going to run in 2031. I gave myself 10 years. I'm a microbiologist, right? I'm master's in microbiology. I was doing my PhD in 2007. Had issues with my reason, and I left because I wasn't going to work anyway. Then I realized as a science student, I was missing a lot. By 2019, when my daughter had finished secondary school in 2017, I went back to school, Open University, I read law. So that was how I was able to know that there's a part where women were considered, even though in Nigeria we don't accept online this thing for law. By 2021,
and I went back to school and I read BSc Economics. And now I'm doing my master's in public administration. That is me preparing myself, knowing I want, because I just don't want to serve and just be there and think that, oh, well, no, if I serve, the 100 years after I'm dead, I want Nigerians to praise me and say, there was a woman called Aisha Yusufu that did it. So when I learned, and then they came and said, I had done everything, I was oh no, somebody has come before you, the person is giving this kind of, and when I came and I led the leadership, you didn't tell me there was anybody, so they all going to go for primaries, right? And I was offered the House of Representative ticket. I have spent over a decade in Nigeria demanding for the right thing to be done. Then me, I will now partake in an unjust process just because I'm going to be a delegate. I said no. 20 people had brought funds. Out of that 20 people, at least 12, 13 had come to me for my support for them to run. Maybe if I was male, I would say because I have more responsibility. Me, I can afford to. I don't have any. In short, I think financially independent before I like to do that. There's no problem. I'm afraid that take up. So that whole thing, when they expect you, sometimes men are not able, to stand and do that. So for me, the question is not just for us to go through that. And by the way, I have refused to acknowledge that Nigeria has a president. This is Aisha is speaking, it's not NDA. And if I have stopped someone and need a legitimate president for 3 years, and then I now want to collect seats that people were buying for, then I'll be a legitimate lawmaker for 2 years. So those were my own stand for that particular issue. But most importantly, as much as possible that we can get more women, there's something that happened. There was a question you asked her. I think it was that you said, the women at the rural area, right, that do this benefit them. You know what? In 2019, I was the presidential candidate of the women at the grassroots wanted female leaders more than the ones that I did. It was a surprise to me. Guess what? What educated you are, more you are in the software or whatever, you have to go out to pay traffic to get the things you want. The market you want to pay
First, I would say thank you. Super material challenge. But I was unfortunate that Muslim are going to marry good. I think lawyers should be called the lawyers in this room should first have for themselves. The reason is simple. We just demonstrated that the woman can be chosen by both men and women to lead our profession, even though she's contested with two formidable men who are themselves senior advocates. I think it's something to commend her. And this happens to a profession where, if you look at the initial list, women are not even allowed to enroll as lawyers. In fact, the first female lawyers enroll as men, dressed as men throughout their course, and only disclose some of them that they were women after they have died. And that is why we are saying that there are no women in the legal profession. Hello? Now, the question now is constitutional amendment the only way that we can get equal representation? I think the answer is yes. Now, if we do otherwise, and congratulations on this panel, how many women have the financial muscle to carry out what it takes to win in primary? First, you must be able to persuade the delegates, and this persuasion is in kind and in cash. Right? Now, second, whether we like it or not, women in Africa have cultural division. Whether we like it or not, whether we want to say, okay, now my husband cannot resist and take a fresh of the yam, he can take a refrigerated one. Even if you want to say that, we husbands would rather a fresh of the yam than a refrigerated one. Hello? Now, what is the cultural expectation? I'll give you an example. Whether you're coming from wherever part of Nigeria, you say, this is why it's a foreign release. They don't say that about you. And this can even come from women. In fact, this mostly comes from women. So do you have one? You don't have one. Now, we have cultural education, whether we like it or not. And then we have university for women. As I should really say, women would rather want their business to grow horizontally than vertically. Because, in fact, I have seen many questions on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, where it says, please hide my ID. I don't know that an appointment, my salary is going to be higher than my husband. Should I take it? I've never seen a man ask that question. So these are cultural inhibitions that only the Constitution shall amend. And why is that? If you go to the fundamental rights section of the Constitution, it says choices about decisions in Nigeria should not be inhibited by sex, circumstances of birth, and all those other things, trace of all of that. And if you now say, just by an act of National Assembly, you want to reserve a seat specifically for women, you have discriminated against men by virtue of their sex. Hello? Hello? Please listen to me. Listen to what I'm saying. Get it first before you listen. It is only by constitutional amendment that you can achieve peace in Nigeria. Because if only an act of national assembly provides that we should have additional constituencies reserved solely for women, that law will be violating the provisions of the Constitution that says that there should be no preference based on sex, race, ethnic background, and all of that. Hello? And I'm sure we will all agree with me on this point. Therefore, it is only that instrument, which is the Supreme Law, that needs to be amended so that anybody who wants to cry foul will come to terms with the fact that a constitutional provision cannot be said to be inferior to another constitutional provision, and as such we have to live by that law. Yes, I agree. The procedure for the election as contained in the bill is problematic. And I also agree that those people who will be the initial beneficiaries will be MUMU. In fact, I would even want them to play the MUMU role until they've gotten sufficient empowerment to then begin to play as they should. Let me give you an example. I think it's the lady, Flora, right? The one that has an oil. Does she shout at men? Ask her. Yes. Did they say yes, sir? Yes. Could she have shouted at them if she did not have the money that she has? No. They would not have accepted. Hello? The senior advocates that are here that are sole practitioners, including the female senior advocates, they shout at men. In fact, they like busting over men. That's because they've been able to attain the peak of the profession. Hello, you need to empower yourself first before you can have a seat to the table. Let me give a simple illustration. All those who came into this hall had checks at the main entrance at the gate and another even at the entrance here, right? So you have to say, oh, I'm coming to NBA Women Forum. Right? If they want, they will say you have to call somebody to confirm that you're coming and all of that, right? Therefore, in the room where political decision is being discussed, if you don't have an invitation, you can't go in. Is that not correct? Therefore, you will need to get the invitation. Come in, get that seat, no matter how crooked it is. Sit on it and begin to discuss on how to make that seat better. I, for one, do not think that women should get any privilege better than men. And I will give you a simple illustration. I'm doing a case, I'm done, 1 minute, I'm doing a case against, say, a female senior advocate, right? And she cites the wrong cases, and I cite the right cases. Is it the law that she should win the case because she's a woman? No! She should win the case because she cites better and correct cases. Hello? So we have to do a lot to achieve what we want to achieve. But we should remember, just as it was prior forbidding for women to be lawyers, so should we go that MB is proudly saying it is going to swear in the statutory president as the female.
general election, or is she accountable to the public who have underlying voters? Famous question.
I think your question, I think the answer is your question. It's actually not pioneers for the taxpayer. It's accountable. It's like this. The electoral college is the end responsible with special consequences called women consequences. In fact, we even go further to create exceptions because consequences outside so you have to create exceptions to allow this particular way of so each specialty is tied to the so she has a concept, she has a base that she's actually and that's also the
No, I want to go.
I think that's a way say that the constitution also so what the constitution does, I mean constitutional provisions, is to actually just set out the framework of the broad architecture that says, like what Melody said, to suspend this discrimination, anti-discrimination policy. And I'm very, very happy that the next to actually mention this because Section 42 is very clear. And that is why critical community action to the electoral has not worked. Because they are trying it and we have no legislation of them and say, I will vote for I will sue you. And you will win because the constitution says you should not wait. Advantages on the basis of sex is very, very clear. So what is the constitution is the language media So I totally agree with that the constitution is serious, but it is very, very, yes, it's difficult to challenge. It's difficult to challenge. And we have the attention to the organization of the bill states that National Assembly should go further to now walk out behind it. That's where that comes in. And it's not about anything with it. So the question I'm putting out is, should we interrogate the composition? It's not too late. This bill is not adopted. So in Rwanda, for instance, Rwanda has electoral college as well, and the composition is inclusive. There are women groups there. So I think the question we should ask ourselves, when to look at the graph, say how do we make the electors more inclusive? Then in the implementation of how do we create that? Because women still have to do nomination to do the college, they still have to contest it. So the implementation of this flesh out details, I think that is where the legal community really needs vigilance. Because that's where we can allocate our provisions that can promote transparency and fairness in the selection process.
Thank you. So there's certainly an opportunity there for the inclusion and the policy making stage, as Tony Michelle mentioned in our intervention earlier. When it comes to you, then I'm going to come to Aisha. And I'm going to be a little bit controversial. Now, in terms of how the bill might work, in terms of increasing representation, currently there are about 20 women in the National Assembly. You work in the field of maternal and childhood. Can you name something significant in child maternity health that has come as a result of those women being there? And if the answer is no, I hope it's not, but if it is, what difference would 157 make? Because we need time to go out.
We have about 4.2 right now. So I would say significantly nothing has moved from now to without space. However, we're not expecting it to because there's a threshold. Research has shown that there's a threshold. Below 80%, nothing moves the 80%. However, above 50%, start to see changes in maternal health outcomes. And it's not that the women in the room don't Now, there's obviously a correlation between increased participation of women in politics and the reduction of maternal and child deaths in the country.
Thank you very much. Actually, let me come back to you. So you're wrong when you are saying that that point. So there's actually a point of disagreement between yourself and Natasha. We know that. So Natasha's position is that the more women in training will lead to less women die in the course of maternal mortality. Now, you could express the position, I hope I'm correct, that irrespective of who is in the chamber, the system produces the same result, whether it's a man or whether it's a woman. So both of you answer hence the problem. So perhaps state why you have that, why you express that position. And maybe Natasha can respond to see whether she is correct in certain.
Yeah, so if you talk about responding, so let me say this. The line of questioning is biased. The question you ask at the time is biased. There are many adults that treat children. Is this more boys or more girls? I'm not we don't have to know that there was a male woman that is also a very how many men are part of when you are treating children are all the same? When you see this is how things are done, sometimes you're in a backhanded compliment. I grew up as a child, always being told, you are like a boy. Then you are like a man. No, I'm not a man, I'm a woman, I'm a very young life. my religion says I cannot lead prayer and I'm okay with that. But to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, my religion does not stop me from becoming. If you have money in your house, who can manage money in your house? Then you have come to a relationship where it's about management of the resources and ensuring that everybody is taken care of. Then you now say, oh, there are certain people who want to. Then that's the way to tell you something. Have you ever wondered that when we are doing protests and women are in front and behaving together, nobody is saying that those men should behave more than they are women. If you want to avoid person, do you have a lot of women living in advocacy? Thank you, because I was saying that there are more women, and you know why? Because it is sacrificial leadership. People forget that we have been competition right from when we were young. As a young girl, I had people who pray for me and say, oh, there was a woman and there was my and she prayed for me and she said, may you be the first lady of Nigeria. And I said, God forbid. If you do that right for me, I said, God forbid. I saw something for being the president of Nigeria. So you see, this condition, when you're told you can't do this, you can't reach that level, that's what women, you know that. So they are told that, oh, no, you need to do that. If I don't look for money, why are you looking for position? So you find more women that should actually be in politics and stay and stop in advocacy. And we need to have a crossover. They don't people say, no, actually, you're living by the way, my living politician. I think when I like my capital letter, I'm a politician. And this one is there for anytime. Now, let's go to something. People expected a different reaction from me. When the family went to it, they expected me to come out and start saying, my mate, they do for the start party, they go to presidential, and I want to fight for those things. Because it's deliberate. If we do everything to ensure that the Nigeria is put together, then when a hero like something, they say, this is what they do by Chinese. So you see this what they do, more, we will be in this. I will say, I'm like, don't know me, I'm excited. Yes! As we're having this conversation, honestly, I think from now on, not sitting now, that's where I have to go. I'm not going to be any part of any conversation where women are sitting down with discussing gender inequality. We need this every day. We should not be triggering it. And then all is sitting and telling you that, what we should be doing is that solutions on how to. We remember what Dr. That is how we trap ourselves like more than and put us to those solutions. So we need to start thinking, how do we place women at the place? When I enter meetings where I am the only woman, they know that I will call it. I will call it because I'm not supposed to be here. Sometimes they say, there's a woman, but it's not that I'm a woman, I'm Aisha. I'm not a woman, I'm Aisha. Don't use me for those products. I will not stop to say, let's begin to work on what I will do. I will say, no, because it's not that. That women for the start party, and we said, no, how many are we sending to national assembly? Let's look at 2031, 2035, 2041, and we need to prepare. How many women we begin to put money down? Even if it is not 1,000 naira, we will put an actual to 1,000 naira every month. 1 million women, giving 1,000 naira, and 1 million women that can afford to give 1,000. If that's all, we will have a billion every month. In 1 year, we will have 12 billion. What we get, they say they get money, we will show them money.
I appreciate the way each member of the panel has driven the conversation forward. It is inevitably there will be points that will come across with the controversial, but we shouldn't shy away from it. I don't think it's sort of shy away from it. Not everybody else. So we could keep this conversation going. And we really want to. This should be part one. we need to consider that option. And also really materialize the loss in the budget in terms of what the house is going to be. And that's what the discussing deal with us. So let's go to our session now. I'm just going to ask each panelist, either your thoughts shots, or if you prefer, if there's one other energy that was to build a deal, what would it be? So I'll start from Susan and what are we seeing?
I'll just invite the panelists to please come to the front of the podium for a group photograph.
For me to also just add, I need to go on and how eating at home. You know, it's considered time.
Thank you so much for your time. We will let you run off. Once we take the group photograph, we'll have your award presented to you and we will let you go. And we've taken a lot of your time. Thank you so much. So we'll just have the panelists come down just below the table, and we'll have our photographers take the pictures. We invite the state lead to join the picture, after which we also invite other panelists here present to join. Other panelists, please, while that is going on, I'll invite Bashir Liko, who just walked in, to please also join us on stage to assist with the presentation of the awards. To our panelists alongside the state lead and other dignitaries present, I also recognize some of our special guests. We have the Deputy DG, Securities and Exchange Commission, represented here by the Company Secretary, Mrs. Simrion Garba, who is here to represent the Securities and Exchange Commission. I don't know if she's still in the room. Please join us. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for waiting. We also have the body of benchers, ably represented by Mr. Tabo, who is the Director of Protocol. We have Dr. Inebi of Now University. We have distinguished staff of the EFCC led by Deputy Command Rita Oga. We have Dr. Choma Okeke, who is the immediate past chairperson of ICSAN. We are so very grateful. We have Ojo Chenemi Audu, former Attorney General, who is representing the former Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Mohammed Bello Adoke, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Please give them a round of applause. So we immediately go into the presentation of the award. We'll start with the award for Aisha Yesufu, a politician, human rights activist, socio-political reformer. We are so grateful to have you with us. Would
appreciate kindness, support, and the award of appreciation presented. I thank you. We have been presented the award to all of them as the Chief Board, Chairman of the chapter. Thank you.
Please, for those that came with the complimentary buses, the buses are outside, they're ready to take off. You can join the buses. For those that came with the buses provided by the Thank you. While we're rounding up with the awards for the panel, members of the Summit Planning Committee, please come on stage. Members of the Summit Planning Committee. Your driver. Members of the Summit Planning Committee, please. We'll just ask Mr. Isaiah Bozimo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, to assist us with presenting the awards to members of the Planning Committee. Members of the Summit Planning Committee. Pere. Let me bring it for you. I'll collect the food for your drive. But would you wait? Let me bring it now as you're doing it. 10 minutes. 5. Mr. Isaiah Bozimo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, please do us the honors of presenting the awards to members of the Summit Planning Committee. Khadija, where are the awards? Where is the girl that is helping us? If you are a member of the Summit Planning Committee, please come to the stage to receive your award as we wrap up this event. Jennifer, Pere, Peace, Sumaya, Ihoma, Hawa. Please come to the stage to receive your award. For those that came with the buses are outside. Please go outside to join the bus to take you back to your destination. Members of the Summit Planning Committee, please, for the last time, come to the stage to receive your awards. Thank you. Mr. Isaiah Bozimo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, please, we need your kind assistance with the presentation of the award. So we're over here. Yes. So the village is crowded. Just photographers. Come. For the photographers, members of the Summit Planning Committee,
so Paramount is, I've told you this before, it's the female equivalent of my son's name, which is Paramount. So good to see you again. I think I saw you last at the YLF event, and we spoke briefly. I didn't know you were contributing to this. Thank you very much for all you did, and it's my pleasure to present this to you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Last person? I'm also listening. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for your innovation, for all the hard work. The payment, you can see the room is full. The panels were very interesting. So thank you for everything. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I look forward to next year to see an even better event. I'm sure you'll be part of it too. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. She has not finished. She will still do the handover. I was just standing. Okay. Thank you.
Actually,